Shady, pay-to-play donations have been a part of politics for generations. It's a part of the swamp that most people think will never be drained. But can a conservative plan for campaign finance reform really work? Joining me now, a man with a plan, Executive Director of Take Back Our Republic, John Pudner. John, so great to see you. We've talked about this many times before. I'd love you just to explain to our audience what you think needs to be done to tackle this problem of the big money donors corrupting politics.
Campaign finance can be positive. We want to bring back the old Reagan-era tax credits where your average person can keep the first $100, $200 they were going to give the IRS and instead use it to pick a candidate. Get that as a tax credit. That gets people back involved in the process, lets candidates look at their voters versus just a big donor out of state to fund their campaign.
So wait, you're saying that the focus of any conservative reform should be to encourage more small donors. Is that what you think needs to happen?
We have bad money that can be stopped, but I think the first focus is the positive thing. How do we get people back involved in this process? If I gave a check to Ronald Reagan,
people,
I got
who
my
do you
tax
mean?
Average voters. And you asked the right question. Every voter, we want them back involved. They're giving up on the system because all the money's coming from special interests.
So you want more people to give money?
That's right. It sounds backwards, but
right.
We want average people giving money. Otherwise, the politicians count on a check from out of state, even foreign money that's coming in through illicit practices.
Right.
We want it to come from their voters. We want to make them go to their voters for these little checks because they'll add up.
Okay, so you talked about tax credits. Explain how that works.
This was an old system. When Ronald Reagan ran, everyone could keep the first $100, $200 they were going to give the IRS in their tax return. Instead, pick candidate or candidates of their choice.
So this used to happen?
Used to happen through Reagan's second
You could
election.
actually write off some of your tax if you gave money to a political candidate?
That's right, and these are small donors.
And when did that end?
86. It was thrown out accidentally. There was a big omnibus measure to clean up tax credits, and this one was thrown out almost accidentally in 86, and we just never came back and put it back in.
Absolutely fascinating. So this was something that actually existed. Did Reagan introduce it?
No. Did not. No, it pre-existed Reagan from the early 70s, but anyone who wrote a check for or against him got that off their taxes, a small check.
But there's a lot of people I know, especially on the conservative side of the political fence, would think of that whole question of campaign finance reform as that's a liberal thing. You're trying to kind of stop political speech and it's unconstitutional. What's your response?
They don't like the word. Call it drain the swamp if you want.
That's what I did call it, yeah.
The word isn't important. And you have liberals who say, well, I don't want that because it's to drain the swamp. But no. We have a dysfunctional campaign finance system that invites foreign money and does not encourage small donors. So it's a bad system now.
So do you think that there's a chance of this happening? So basically you're kind of, I know it's not going to solve the whole problem because it's a very big and deep problem, but this notion of the tax credits, if you just got that through tax credits for small dollar donations, you think that would make a big difference?
Such a big piece. Once someone wrote any check in a campaign, we found they were involved, they voted, they talked to people, they brought people into the process, they told them what government was doing to them in the form of taxes and regulation. They become better citizens and pay attention. So this is the big positive. This could really be a game changer on these elections.
And so also when people hear that, they might think, well, this is kind of the government funding politics somehow.
Sure. Well, if you believe the government owns your tax money, then that would be your view. I'd say from a conservative perspective, it's our money. The government is taking it away. Let us keep the first $100, $200 to actually give to someone who will be a good steward of our money.
And do you think there's any chance of this happening?
We've been waiting for tax reform to start. I think that's the timeline we need to work in, and we think this fits in logically to tax reform.
Well, isn't the whole goal of tax reform to sort of take away these kind of distortions of the tax system for this good thing or that good thing?
I actually talked to Ken Cuccinelli, who's tried to get rid of all tax credits in Virginia. He said this was the one he liked the most because this is for the people. Every other tax credit is to favor some huge donor. You finally have one that's for the average person to get them involved.
That is a good argument. So you're saying actually, because every week when we do Swamp Watch here, there's an element of it about political donations from big companies that end up corrupting the system. Well, great to have you explain that. We're going to